Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is my Halloween costume. Can anyone guess who I am?
Joseph, the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Joseph of the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Right.
Yeah, so I wanted to share with you today the story of Joseph. I was just sharing with Chris before service today that, I've always had trouble with the Bible because it's been used as a weapon. And so I was really anti-Bible for a long time. But every time I go to share a story or read it, I'm like, this is really good stuff. There's so much drama, so much dysfunction, so much pain and suffering and rising above. And isn't that representative of our own lives, right? So that's how we in Unity want to look at Bible stories, is how can we take this story and what the characters are experiencing and going through, and how can we relate that to our own life? And the story of Joseph is one of my favorites because if you've ever heard me speak before, you've heard me talk about yay opportunity, right?
Right.
And that is when, wow, my life, I'm really experiencing a challenge, and I'm really being, pushed, and all my buttons are being pushed, and I'm really challenged. And guess what? Yay, opportunity for me to grow and evolve and bring forth more of my Christ nature, right? So that's the story of Joseph in a nutshell. And I want to share with you So we just said earlier, with peaceful hearts, we are open to the divine flow of abundance, ideas, and substance. And that's what Joseph did. So when he was 17 years old, he wasn't in his full maturity. In fact, he was the second youngest son of 12 sons of his father Jacob, and he was the favorite. Jacob loved him the best and did not keep that a secret. So I want you to imagine you have 12 brothers and one is obviously the favorite. I mean, do you think there was sibling rivalry? Yeah?
No.
The brothers hated Jacob. He was a spoiled brat. His father made a beautiful coat of many colors for him. And Joseph wore that coat pridefully, like a braggart, right? And in this time period, dreams were taken very seriously. They were considered prophetic. And so a person's dreams were a big deal. So when he was 17 years old and he's got his beautiful coat and everybody knows he's the golden child, he has a couple of dreams. And he says to his brothers, I gotta tell you guys about this dream I had. We were all out and we were gathering stalks of wheat, and all of a sudden my stalk stood up tall, and all of your stalks bowed down to mine. Right? And he said, and you're not going to believe this, I had another dream. The moon and the stars and the sun bowed down to me. And what that means is the sun and the moon are his parents, and the 11 stars that bowed down to him were his brothers. And by this time, his brothers were like, you know what? You are such a jerk. We want nothing to do with you. And they excluded him, and they couldn't say a nice word to him. It was tension all the time. And Jacob he didn't help the situation. So the brothers are out tending the sheep, because they had sheep. They're supposed to be doing their thing. And Joseph has a history of tattling on his brothers, which is another reason why they didn't like him. But Jacob, the dad, says, you know what? I just have this feeling. Can you go check on your brothers? make sure that they're tending the sheep, make sure everything's okay. Of course, Joseph's like, yeah, I'm going to go catch them doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So he goes to the field where they're supposed to be, and they're not there. And he's wandering around in the field, which I think is funny, because, like, if you think of the story, I just imagine this guy in this fancy coat wandering a field, like, where are my brothers and all these sheep? Anyway, the Bible's funny like that. So some random man comes along and says, hey, what are you looking for? You're wandering around searching, what are you looking for? He's like, my brothers, do you know where they are? They're supposed to be tending the sheep. And he says, yeah, they went over to Dothan. I overheard them talking. He's like, thank you. He's like, I'm going to go catch them doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So he heads over to Dothan, and the brothers see him coming. So they see him before he sees them. And they're like, you know what, we've had it with this kid. Let's kill him. Let's kill him. I can't stand him anymore. He's going to get us in trouble with our father. So one of the brothers says, you know, that's kind of harsh. And I am in bad favor with my father because in a previous story, he slept with one of his father's wives, not his own mother, so that's good. But he's not in good favor with his father. So he thinks, you know what? We could just throw him in a pit, let him almost die, and then I can save him and bring him to my father, and then I'll be in good favor with my father. So this just tells you more of the dysfunction of this family, right? Right? So Joseph, comes along, and his brothers grab him, tear his fancy coat from him, and they throw him in this pit. And it's empty. And they still want to kill him. The one brother who didn't want to kill him thought he had set the plan, and he left so he could come back later and accidentally find his brother in trouble. But the other brothers sit down and have some lunch while they're listening to Joseph in the pit, begging for them to help him. And they said, well, we're not going to help him, but maybe we shouldn't kill him because, what do we get other than rid of our brother? What do we get if we kill him? I know. Let's sell him, and then we get some money. So they found a caravan that was going to Egypt, and they said, hey, you want to buy this guy? And they said, yeah, here's 30 gold or silver pieces. So they sell their brother into slavery. Right? This is a lot. Make sure I didn't forget anything. Oh, yeah. So what they do is they take the coat, Joseph's fancy coat, and they dip it in goat's blood, and they bring it back home. And they say to their father, they say, okay, we just found this random, so why don't you look at it and find out, is it your son's? And the father is heartbroken. He recognizes it immediately. Yes, this is my son's. He must have gotten eaten by a big animal, and my poor son. And he mourned and mourned. He was inconsolable, mourning the loss of his son. So meanwhile, Joseph is sold to Potiphar, and he is the captain of the guards for the king. And he does a good job. And in the story, consistently in the story, we are told that the Lord was with Joseph. And so what does that mean? The Lord was with Joseph. Do you remember the thing that we all said this morning that I repeated to you? With peaceful hearts, we are open to the divine flow of abundance, ideas, and substance. So Joseph, the Lord being with Joseph, means that Joseph was always able to get himself centered and could discern what the right thing to do was. He always knew what to do. He always knew how to get things done, how to set things up for the best for himself and those around him. And soon, Potiphar's estate was doing so well, he just kept giving Joseph more and more responsibility, because the more he gave him, the richer he got. And things were going fantastic. And we're told in the story that Joseph is a really good-looking guy and very fit. And you can imagine, that he's kind of a golden child. So not only is he good-looking, he's fit, but he's probably charming too, right? He's got a magnetism to him. Potiphar's wife takes notice and tries to seduce him. And he politely declines. And she keeps on and keeps on and keeps on, and he keeps denying her. And then one day he comes into the house and there's no other workers there. It's just the wife and Joseph. Now Joseph was not using his intuition at this time. He should have not entered the house. But he did. And she grabs him. Now Joseph has a thing with his coats. She grabs him and he is like, whoa, no way. He slips out of his coat and he's like, I'm out of here. And he leaves. Potiphar's wife screams, ah! And the other household members hear her, and they run in, and she's there, with a distraught look on her face, and holding his coat, and she says he tried to attack her. Her husband comes home, and as you can imagine, is furious. So he sends Joseph to jail. Now Joseph is open to the divine flow of ideas, abundance, and substance. So even in jail, he's like, you know what, where's my yay opportunity? I'm limited here, but let's make the most of this sucky situation, right? So the same thing happens. He gets put in charge of more and more. So now he's like the head prisoner, taking care of the other prisoners, and the guards are like, this is awesome because now we have light work and things are being run better than they were before. So he's in there for quite some time. And then two of the king's men ticked off the king, and it's his cupbearer and his head baker. And I don't know what they did, but they ticked off the king, and the king sent them to prison. And so, of course, Joseph is there taking care of them. He's in charge of making sure they get their food and whatever else they need in prison. And he comes one morning, and he's like, wow, what's wrong? Obviously, something is upsetting both of you. What is it? And they said, we both had these dreams. Different dreams, but both of us had one. And there's no one to interpret for us. And he says, well, God can interpret. Tell me. So what was he saying when he said that? God can interpret your dreams. Tell me. What is your dream? The Christ presence in him could hear and interpret the dream. So they tell him their dreams. The cupbearer says, yeah, I had this dream. There was this vine. It had 3 branches. On the branches bloomed some grapes. I took the grapes and I pressed them in a cup and I gave the cup to the king. Joseph says, here's what your dream means. 3 branches is 3 days. In 3 days, the king is going to come and uplift you and restore you to your position. And you will be handing wine to the king just like you did before. But I beg of you, when that happens, remember me. And he told him the story of how he was unjustly imprisoned. And of course the guy's like, yeah, I'll remember you. So then the other guy says, ooh, that was a good interpretation. I'm going to tell you my dream. And my dream, I forgot his dream, hold on. Oh, right. So the baker had a dream that he had 3 baskets on his head filled with all the wonderful baked goods for the king. But as he was walking, birds came and ate the goods out of the top basket. And he's like, what does this mean? And Joseph says, oh, here's what your dream means. In 3 days, 3 baskets is 3 days. In 3 days, the king will come and cut off your head and hang your body up, and the birds will eat you. Right? That's horrible. And that's the last we hear of that guy.
Oh my God.
But in 3 days, it all comes to fruition. The cupbearer is restored. The other guy meets his fate. And Joseph is left in prison for a few more years because the cupbearer was so excited to be restored to his former position that he forgot all about Joseph. Joseph does not get a bitter heart. Even after all of this, he still does not have a bitter heart. He's like, where's my yay opportunity? I gotta make the best of my situation. So he's still thriving in prison, as much as one can thrive in prison. And so a few years pass, and the king has 2 dreams. And they were so disturbing to him, and they lingered and worried him, that he called all the magicians and all the wise men and said, here are my dreams, what do they mean? And nobody could interpret them. I kind of think maybe nobody had the guts to interpret them, because imagine if you're in this time and situation, like what if you were the bearer of bad news to the king? What would happen to you? So I don't know. Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they had no clue. We don't know. But then the cupbearer says, oh, I had made a promise that I forgot about. But I'm remembering now. So, king, there was this guy who could interpret dreams. He tells him the whole story. So the king is hopeful, and he says, go get me this guy from prison. So they clean Joseph up, they bring him before the king, and the king says, all right, I have these 2 dreams. I'm standing by the Nile, and 7 sleek, beautiful, fat cows come out of the river. And they graze on the grass, and it's beautiful. And then 7 skinny, thin, ugly cows come out, and they consume, they eat the fat cows. And you wouldn't know it because they were still left thin and ugly. And then my second dream was of a stalk with 7 ears on it, plump and juicy and beautiful. And next in line of the row was a stalk with 7 thin and blighted ears. And the thin and blighted ears enveloped and swallowed the fat, plumped ears. Can you interpret my dreams? So Joseph takes a deep breath and he says, here's what your dreams mean. The 7 of both dreams is 7 years. You will have 7 years of plenty, so much abundance. followed by 7 years of extreme famine. And because there were 2 dreams, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen soon. So Joseph lays out this whole plan of how to have success given these dreams. You know, you gotta find someone, put them in charge of, going around and collecting all the grain and taking 1/5 of everything and storing it. And you gotta do it here and here and here because the famine's gonna be widespread. He lays out this whole plan. And the king is really impressed. And he says, well, obviously, you're the guy to do this. So he puts Joseph in charge. And he does such a good job. He is so successful that the surplus is so vast, they stop counting and measuring. Because it was as if they were counting grains of sand on the beach. There was so much surplus. So there's 7 years of this, and then the famine hits. And good thing for all in Egypt, Joseph did a really good job. So everyone used their money to buy the grain during the famine. When they ran out of money, they started buying with their livestock. When they ran out of livestock, they started buying with the ownership of their land. Meanwhile, Jacob and all the brothers are, they're experiencing the famine as well. And I love this part of the story because Jacob goes to his brothers and he says, or to the sons, and he says, what are you doing sitting about? I've heard that there's grain to be bought in Egypt. What are you guys doing sitting around? We're going to starve. Go to Egypt and get us some grain. I thought that was funny. So the brothers, all 10 brothers go. Remember, there's 11 left after Joseph. 10 brothers go, but they leave Benjamin. Benjamin is Joseph's younger brother, who is now the new favorite, because Joseph was the favorite, and they all think he's dead, so there needs to be a new favorite. So it's Benjamin. And Jacob says, I am not risking Benjamin. I'll risk the rest of you guys, though, so you go get it and bring back some grain. So the brothers go to Egypt, and everyone has to go through Joseph, because Joseph is second only to the king. So, of course, they end up in front of Joseph. And what are they doing? They're bowing down. They are bowing down to their brother. But they don't recognize him. Because remember, when this all happened, he was like not even 20. When they put him in the pit and he was sold and all these years passed, he's like 30 now. So they don't even recognize their own brother, but he recognizes them. Now, I would like to say that Joseph was so evolved that he held no grudges. But he was like, you are spies. I'm going to put you in jail so you can rot. And they were like, no, we're not spies. In fact, we're all from the same family. We're all brothers. We all, have this bunch of different moms, but we're all from Jacob. In fact, we have one more brother at home. And that there's hope for Joseph, because at one point he has to leave the room because he's so moved by seeing his family and hearing that his father is still alive and that his baby brother is still alive. He ends up saying, okay, I'll sell you the grain, but you still have to prove to me that you're not spies. And you can prove that to me by going home and bringing, your younger brother here? Prove to me. And they're like, oh my God, like, Dad won't let the younger brother come, but they're like, it's better than being in prison for being spies, right? So they take the grain, they buy the grain, they go home. They find that the money that they spent on the grain is actually in their packs. And now they're freaked out because you're supposed to pay for grain. And they thought they had, but their money was still in their bag. So they were worried about that. They get back and they tell their dad, they tell Jacob, we have to bring Benjamin back to prove that we're not spies. And maybe we should bring this money back too. And Jacob's like, I don't care. I am not risking Benjamin. No. And the brothers, it goes on and on for chapters and chapters. It goes on and on. So they're like, okay, we'll just deal with what we have until that grain runs out. Remember, this is a 7-year famine. And pretty soon the brothers convince the father, like, look, we could have been there and back many times over in the amount of time this is taking. We have to bring Benjamin to Egypt. Finally, Jacob agrees. And there's all these promises about, you can kill me or hold it against me for all of my life if I don't bring my brother back to you, blah, blah, blah. So they go back, and Joseph, again, is just moved by seeing his brother Benjamin. He's sneaking away to cry, and, he's also talking to them with an interpreter, so they don't know that he can understand everything they're saying when they're talking in their home language. But he overhears them talk about how they understand that they are being accused of being spies because of the horrible treatment of their brother Joseph. We're running, there's so much more to this story. I'm not going to do a part 2, but we'll wrap this up. They go back and forth. They go back and forth, and Joseph ends up setting them up again. And he sends them back home, and he puts a silver cup. He has one of his servants put a silver cup in Benjamin's bag. And then he sends his servants after them, and they're like, hey, you stole from us. After everything the kingdom is doing for you, you stole from us. How could you do this? And of course the brothers are like, what are you talking about? No, we're not spies. We're not thieves. We're good men. No, we didn't do that. Check our bags. In fact, check our bags, and if you find any stolen goods, we will be your slaves for all eternity. Or you can kill us. Or you can kill the thief, and the rest of us will be your slaves. Like, this is the conversation they're having. They are sure that they have not stolen anything. So, of course, the bags get gone through, and they find the silver cup. And Joseph is like, Benjamin's now my slave, but the rest of you can go home. And the brothers are like, are you kidding us? No, we can't go home. We can't go home to our father without Benjamin. Surely our father would die from sorrow. Benjamin is just there, kind of at the whim of what his older brothers are deciding about his life, right? And his brothers are saying, take us, we'll be your slaves. Finally, Simeon, one of the brothers says, I will stay here, I will be your slave, let my brothers go home so my father doesn't die from sorrow. Joseph agrees. And this goes on and on and on, right? This ruse of testing his brothers. And eventually he fesses up, before he sends them home again, fesses up, I am Joseph, I am your brother. You know, I'm the one that you threw in a pit and sold into slavery. And the brothers are like, oh my gosh. They're not mad that he's been accusing them of being spies. They're not mad about any of this. They are just really freaking out and think that their brother is going to be so vengeful that they and all their descendants will be cursed. But this is where it's interesting. This is where the lesson for us comes. Joseph says, no, I don't hold your actions against you. Because of your actions, I stepped into my greatness. Because of my experiences, I am able to save the world from starvation. Joseph had 2 sons sometime in the midst of all of this. And their names have really interesting, oh, here it is. Manasseh. And that means God has made me forget all of my hardships and all of my father's house. And Ephraim, God has made me fruitful in the land of my misfortunes. Is there a better example of yay opportunity? Right? Sometimes we are the golden child, right? Everything we touch turns to gold. Everything we do just flows, and we can't, it's like even our mistakes are golden. And sometimes it feels like the whole world is against us, ripping off the one wonderful thing we have and throwing us into a pit, selling us into slavery, and getting us imprisoned. But whatever our experience is, when we stay centered in who and what we are, and who and what are we? What was it?
The Christ presence.
The Christ presence. When we hold the knowing of who and what we truly are at our core, we shine, and we shine brightly, no matter where we are. Whether we are the favorite, or whether we are the most hated. And this is where we can take our example from these characters, because sometimes who has ever felt jealousy or envy? Right? And you're like, gosh, that person is such a jerk, and why do they get all the breaks? You know, we can relate to the brothers too, right? I remember when I was young, I was really mad at my mom, and I would wish that we lived kind of in Tornado Alley. I wished that a tornado would come and suck up my house and my mother.
Oh.
Isn't that horrible? That's horrible. But I was in my victimhood, right? I was in my victimhood. I wasn't in that solid knowing of who and what I truly am at my core. And Jacob, so one of these days I'm going to share Jacob's story. He tricked his father into getting a blessing when it was meant for his other brother. So much drama in this family. This is another thing. Joseph is breaking the dysfunction of his ancestry. Instead of seeking revenge on his brothers, although he did trick them a little bit and put them through some hell, but in the end, he gave them everything they needed, supplied them during the famine, gave them land, gave them animals, helped them flourish. Full forgiveness. So there's so many examples here. So Jacob, the dad, playing favorites. And I imagine he was playing his sons against each other. Why would you send the tattletale kid to go check on all the other brothers unless you were playing them against each other? And I'm sure at least some of us have played people against each other to get what we want, or sometimes to get back at somebody. Every one of these characters lives inside of all of us. And some of them are louder than others, right? Some of us, our Joseph is really loud, and we're like, I am centered, and I'm the golden child most of my life, and blah, blah, blah. And some of us are that, some of us are Benjamin, who's like, well, I'm the new favorite only because Joseph died. And I'm at the whim of my brothers, and what they do and what they decide. So we get to take this story, and we're going to take this into meditation, not so much the story that I just shared with you, but take into meditation the idea of Joseph's journey, the idea of your own hardships, your own wounding from loved ones. Who's supposed to love us the most but our family? Our spouse, our parents, our children, our siblings. They're supposed to love us the most. And we all have woundedness from those who are supposed to love us the most. So let's bring that into meditation. That hurt that we can feel from those closest to us. And then, what can we shift inside of us so we can live more from our Christ selves and less from one of, revenge, vengeance, victimhood, self-pity, wallowing. So I'm going to assume that everyone has something in mind, because we all have our life stories, right? Bring your real life story to mind. And let's just take those 3 deep breaths to shift from our head to our heart. And if you're brave here in the building, give me an audible exhale. Those of you who are watching us online, I invite you to do the same. So let's take a deep breath. Again. Once more. Let's focus on our heart space. Imagine, sense, and feel that indwelling part of you that is connected to all that is. That part of you that is sacred. And bring your life situation from your mind's eye into your heart. Imagine cloaking yourself with a Technicolor dream coat. Cloaking yourself in the knowing that you are an expression of the divine. Cloaking yourself in the knowing that all we need to do is open up to divine abundance, ideas, and substance. We just ask that highest point of ourselves, that still small voice within, what in me might I shift to be more like Joseph, to let go of my woundedness and step into my greatness? What might I shift to better step into my greatness? We'll hold that for a few moments in silence. With peaceful hearts, we are open to the divine flow of abundance, ideas, and substance. We are open to find the yay opportunity in every challenge. We are open to shining our light brightly and fully living as who and what we were meant to be, expressions of the divine. And so it is.